Welcome to the podcast, everybody. I am Penn Street, and I am your host. And welcome to the ride today. We have a great guest, Jeff Flodin. Jeff now resides in Colorado, but he has covered the country quite a bit in his life. And Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Penn, for inviting me to join you. I think you're doing a valuable service with Aftersight, getting the word out.
Oh, thank you. And I did not pay him to say that. So, so Jeff, how did you lose your sight?
I have spent half my life with low vision and half sighted. And honestly, I preferred the half that was sighted. But when I was 35, like a lot of people that you will hear describe their experience with retinitis pigmentosa, or RP for short, I experienced night blindness, blind spots in my field of vision, and the story's the same, but it's different in every case. And I was living in Tempe, Arizona. I had completed my education with a master's in social work. I was working in a high school with special ed students. I was driving. I was taking photographs, which was my major hobby. I was playing softball on a beer league. I was playing golf and so on. And this came out of the blue because no one in my family, even though RP is a hereditary disease, no one in my family was active with RP. And so it was a surprise. And it has turned out to be somewhere in between learning how to do old things in new ways, which is a very practical and very benign description of losing your eyesight, to somewhere in between that and the end of the world, which is where I went directly when I was diagnosed.
And I know so many of our listeners have been in that place. What sort of turned you around? Because you're so active, even, after you moved back to Colorado, which hasn't really been that long, you pursued getting recertified with your social work license here in Colorado.
Okay.
Like what? You seem like the most bubbly, positive person. What turned you around? Like, was there a moment, or was it over a period of time?
Well, I think one of the frustrating things to me, Penn, was being a social worker. I had been exposed to, and I had learned, and I had been taught the however many stages of grief and loss that are subscribed to. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross had 5. Self-Esteem and Adjusting with Blindness book, which is a tremendous book. And it's available at NLS, has 7 stages of grief and loss. And but what was frustrating for me was that since I had been kind of trained in those, I expected that those would have gone beyond the intellectual level to the emotional level, and that I would just breeze through those stages of loss as my vision decreased. And certainly, you can argue whether to name your poison as, would you rather lose your sight gradually or all at once? What a hell of a choice, right? But I have found, and I still do find, that a gradual vision loss is torturous. And the frustrating thing was that I expected to breeze through those stages of grief, and I added a few more to them. You had denial, anger, depression, bargaining.
Yeah.
And then then I added problem solving, patience, tolerance, avoidance, alcohol, and then acceptance. And I thought acceptance would be a place where you would get, and it would be like the fields of Elysia, it would be like daisy covered. You'd roll around all the time and you'd just be there. But with progressive vision loss, you can go through the stages in one day. I mean, when I was working in Chicago, I began to cross a street where I had crossed with my guide dog for up to 10 years. And I crossed against the light one day, and I got 3 or 4 steps into the street, and a pretty good day at work turned immediately into, it kicked me back to the denial, anger, depression. Yeah. And it's so very fluid. But there were many things that changed my way, and it was very gradual. And it was yesterday I went hiking with my hiking buddy, and she and I went 5 miles, and I bought hiking poles about a year ago. It's just getting out there and doing it, and not be. I have tendencies toward perfectionism. Yeah. Perfectionism with a blind person is not a good combination. So you just kind of grow and accept, and gratitude is huge for what you have. It's a whole mindset. There's no. I didn't have a burning bush. I didn't have a light switch that came on and said, "Oh, you can do this. You can do that."
Yeah.
And you've probably had. I listened to your Aftersight episode, and I don't know whether you can point to one thing. You said faith, absolutely. I've recently reconciled myself. When I was 35, and I'd go to some of the best ophthalmology schools in the country, Shea Eye Institute in Philadelphia, and so on, and in Chicago, and so on. They would say, "Well, don't lose hope, because we're doing research, and God bless the Foundation Fighting Blindness."
Yes, absolutely.
But I'm 72 years old now, and I've reconciled to that. I'm probably not going to get usable eyesight. Right now I have light perception. I can tell if it's a cloudy day, a sunny day. I can see some movement. I can't recognize faces. I haven't seen my own face in 15 years, which is probably a good thing, But
I'm sure you look like Robert Redford. That's what I picture in my head.
No, I just tell people, call me handsome, and I'll answer.
There you go.
I'll answer anything. But I've kind of reconciled to, I'm not going to get really usable vision during my lifetime. And, Penn, to be, it hasn't been the end of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Eric Wymeyer was probably, meeting him was sort of my burning bush, or whatever, people want to call it. Yeah. And I remember reading his first book. And in that book, he talked about when he finally lost all of his vision, prosthetic eye losing of the vision.
Yes.
That it was almost a relief.
Yes.
Because he knew, like, okay, this is what my life is going to be moving forward. There's no flip-flopping or, that hope, that kind of thing. It's like, this is my life and I can deal with this. Yes. And I definitely have done that roller coaster, as well as many people have, of, it was something, for some reasons, I got a little more vision, or, no, I just lost a big chunk of vision. I don't know what I did. I just woke up, and this is what it is. And it's exhausting. And I agree. I think the research that's going on, and they have done a lot, the injections for people with macular degeneration, and there is a lot going on. And with me, it was always the bionic eye. I grew up, the bionic man, and, even my parents and my older siblings, it was like, well, someday you're going to have a bionic eye. And when I had to make that decision as an adult to have my right eye removed because it was so painful, I couldn't see anything out of it. And it was so painful. And it really was impacting my life in so many ways. To make that decision of, okay, it's gone. Because the reason it was so hard is because there was that hope. Like, you still have the optic nerve, and someday, but that pain was so great and really causing a lot of trouble in my day-to-day life, that to make that decision to let it go was huge for me. And I did talk with Eric about that. And he told me a story that the night before the surgery, him and his buddies went out and got drunk and celebrated and said goodbye to his eye. I'm sure the anesthesiologist the next day did not appreciate that, but that really showed me, like, yeah, you are losing a part of yourself, and you should celebrate and you should say goodbye, and there is a grief process with that. And that choice of losing your sight, immediately or over time, I don't think there is is there a door 3? Can I pick door 3?
That's right. Yeah. I prefer to not go through any door. And what you said about pain, I mean, on a practical level, I don't know how difficult it would be to live with pain. One thing about RP that I've been grateful for is it doesn't hurt, and there aren't a lot of really expensive treatments that are necessary to either maintain or whatever. But so there's a lot to be grateful for on a physiological level. But I think that one of the things that turned me around, and I suspect this was the case because you wouldn't be doing what you're doing now if it hadn't clicked with you. Yeah. When I moved back to Chicago in 2008, I became active in a low vision agency there, which had a low vision support group. And I thought, well, I've been living with RP now for 22 years, and some days are good and some days are bad, and maybe I've done a good job and maybe I've done a bad job, and so on. But so why should I join this low vision support group? And it hit me, whether it's the St. Francis prayer or whatever, that maybe I could help somebody else who was just starting out on this journey and was going through the difficult times that I did when I thought that being diagnosed with a blinding condition was the end of the world. Yeah. And that was probably the one thing that turned me around. I started at the invitation of that agency to write a blog. I have a joke about, and I hope you don't take offense and none of the podcast listeners take offense, but I'm very cynical and I don't do social media, in part because of I bump my head against the technology ceiling every day with just what I have to do, make a meal, use the computer, use my iPhone or Victor Reader Stream or whatever. I don't need more of that. Plus, I'm cynical enough to say that Facebook is for people who don't have anything to say. But then my part in it is that, okay, if Facebook is for people who don't have anything to say, then for people who think they have something to say, they write a blog. And for people who really think they've got something to say, they do a podcast, right? But at the invitation of this agency in Chicago, I started writing this blog, and I couldn't figure out what to call it. And then one day, I thought of jalapeños in the oatmeal, because we never know what is going to be added to, what goes on our plate in the morning.
That's right. I love that.
So instead of, from a very literal sense, you went to put raisins in your oatmeal and you ended up with jalapeños.
Yes.
And the subtitle is, because everything has a subtitle these days. I don't know why, but, it's jalapeños in the oatmeal, digesting vision loss. And I've written that for 10 years, just about every couple weeks or so, I churn one out. And it's published through WordPress. And when I alluded to my technology ceiling, what I like to do is write. What I don't like to do is anything having to do with marketing or technology. So I write it, I send it as an email attachment to the people in Chicago, and they post it.
That's wonderful. And you've been doing that for how many episodes have you?
240.
Wow.
240 blog postings. And
wow.
It is very gratifying because I do get some statistics from the people who are the webmasters and so on and so forth who post it. And it's been over 100 people in over 100 countries. For some reason, that it's been very highly viewed in Kuwait, for example. Or something.
Interesting.
So it is. And, so I think that and I think that, also in terms of what's turned me around was being okay with it. I mean, there are days and there are days that I hate blindness. And for a while, I did not want to include blindness in my vocabulary. Mm-hmm. And I don't like to use the word hate, but I can say that on really bad days, I hate blindness, but I don't hate myself.
Oh, that's a great way. That's a beautiful way of looking at it.
Well, there's so much internalization and identity that comes with low vision in terms of what you're perceived to. And you and Moses talked about this too. The treatment that you and Moses get when you're out together.
Yeah.
The people who step, like, oh, geez, they'll seat you in if they could seat you in the kitchen, in the dining, in the restaurant, they would. And there's so much of that gets internalized that I'm deficient.
Yeah.
That I'm not only I not only have low vision, but for some reason I can't hear a word either. So people have to talk louder
and slower. They need to talk slower.
And slower. That's right. And that's all of a sudden I've become stupid.
Yes,
too.
I know. I know, and I see that, especially for people who are really new to losing their vision, or even just I even see it with high school students that maybe were born with vision loss. So it's not this huge transition, but because of the way the world has treated them, and they graduated high school, they're going on to college, they really have that belief ingrained in them that I'm not as good, or I'm not as strong, I'm, as somebody who is sighted. And that's because they've been treated that way for so long. And it breaks my heart, but it's also such an amazing thing to watch them blossom in the world and really realize, like, wait a minute, I can do this on my own with the right skills and the right tools and the right training, and watching them just, really come into the mount. And even, this, how we met is, with the low vision support group that I facilitate, Jeff. I've seen even people on there that I've actually never met in person. It's a virtual group. But when they first came on, they didn't turn on their Zoom cam, or, they didn't really say anything. And then over, a couple of months, now you can't get them to be quiet. And it's so, and that's one of the reasons I think it is so important for those people to go to those support groups. Not only, like you said, I've been through this, and maybe I can share a nugget of knowledge that helps somebody who's new to this, but it's also, it's so amazing to be in a group of people that have had a similar experience and are going through a similar experience than you, no matter what it is. it's such a healing and a strengthening process when you're with a group of people, your group of your peers, your tribe, or whatever you want to call it, is really helpful.
Those of us who have dogs, your pack.
Exactly, your pack. Yes.
And, and I so much appreciate what you do with that low vision support group, and encourage anybody who's listening to this who feels a little bit isolated or a little bit, well, why, not just victim-y, why me, but I'm alone. It's you can really feel alone in a crowd when you can't. This social awkwardness, even, you can't read visual cues as to, is it okay if I want to go join those people? I want to go talk to those people, but are they closed off or do they appear to be open? And what you said about what Eric wrote about his sense of relief in losing that last amount of vision. I've considered myself blind for a long time, but I really do get some benefit from the little vision that I have, because I can tell where the windows are in a room, or where the lights are, or maybe where the door is, and stuff like that. And I will rue the day that I lose that. But at the same time, it's like maybe having so little vision is just a reminder of how much vision I've lost. And it's like it maybe paradoxically improve that. It adds to that frustration of, this is really a bad day. I used to be able to see this, but now I can't, So I don't know, at some point, again, paradoxically, it might just be fine to just like, it's kind of like the analogy of orientation and mobility in terms of life. You need to orient yourself first. In other words, you need to know where the hell you are in order to get somewhere else.
I agree. I agree with that. You need to know where point A is to get to point B. And if you don't, you might end up at point R.
Yes, no, you're right. And I mean, from a literal standpoint, you and I'm on my third. Shouldn't say I'm working with my third guide dog.
Yeah,
and that goes back 19 years now, back to 2003. And when I would step out on the front porch of my house in Chicago and walk to work with my dog Randy, I couldn't walk out on the front porch and say, "Okay, Randy, we're going to work now." So, and he got to, because we did it for 10 years, but you can't say, "Take me to the library" or whatever.
Right.
You have to know. You have to take responsibility for where you are, and the dog will follow. But
and I think that we talked a little bit about this week in the support group about, if you think of it as not being lost, like when you do, like you realize, oh, the bus driver dropped me off at the stop that I don't normally get off.
Yeah.
And if you take away the word lost, and okay, this is going to be an adventure. You tried to get your brain from freaking out.
Yeah.
As somebody shared that, oh, I'm okay. I'm going to call my husband, and he'll just come get me. Well, she realized she didn't know where she was. So it's kind of that thing of taking responsibility of, and I've done that. I've been let off at the wrong stop, and I could smell chicken.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, I can smell chicken. I don't know where I am. So I did call. I called the office where I had the appointment, and I said, I don't know where I am, but I smell chicken. And they said, literally, walk towards the chicken smell.
Absolutely.
And I did. And, and I went in, and I don't remember, it was some chicken restaurant. And I was able to tell the person on the phone, and they're like, oh, you're just, 2 blocks away, go out to the sidewalk, whatever. But you do need to, but I had to take that responsibility of walking towards the chicken smell,
Yes.
which I'm a vegetarian, so that was not the most pleasant thing. But, but it's, but it was to kind of just calm and say, okay, what do I know in this situation? I don't know where I am, but using my other senses,
yes,
what am I picking up? Where am I? I know I'm at a bus stop, because, and just taking a deep breath and figuring out, like you said, where am I? Where am I right now? And I think that's true. Not just in orientation. Sometimes when you wake up in the morning and you're feeling overwhelmed, it's like, okay, where am I? I'm okay. I just need to take a deep breath and I think it's okay to pick up I do. I'll call somebody and say, I'm just feeling overwhelmed and
I have a story that I wrote. It's way too long for a blog, but it's called "I Call You When I Don't Want to Talk to Anybody." And that's the type of contact that you need. And it's easy for me, and I don't know how you feel, Penn. It's easy for me to cite chapter and verse, or to pick out people who, in general, treat blind people with either disrespect or confusion or disdain, or as being deficient in some way. But to be fair, I find that 90% of the people out there really want to be helpful.
Yes.
In some respects, though, they don't know how. Like if they grab your arm at the intersection and pull you into the street.
Yeah,
that's not helpful, but that's a learned thing. And and it's up to us, like when I was living in Chicago and riding the buses every day, after a long day or something, and I'd run into a situation where I had to explain to somebody the best way to help me. And you just get so damn tired of being, but part of being in our position is that we are educators.
Yes.
Whether we want to or not, whether we have the stamina to or not. And there's so many things that come. And what you said about getting lost, quote, lost, or not knowing where you are.
Yeah.
I would really love to be able to see myself as a blind person, to be able to see how I problem solve now, without the 70% of the knowledge that comes from being able to see your surroundings. Look at the street sign and say, oh, I'm at the corner of Jalapeños, or whatever. It's like to be able, I read a study that was done in England about, would you want to have your eyesight restored if there was a cure that came along? And to me, surprisingly, many people said no, because they found that the qualities that they had learned as a blind person had really enhanced their life. And I feel the same way. I'd still like to be able to be enhanced, but sighted. Right?
Yeah, I agree. I people have asked me that too. And as long as I could still be the person I am today and have the life I have today, and because I think I have the life I have today and the friends and the because of my vision loss. And so if I could hang on to that and just all of a sudden, have 20/20 vision, that would be okay. But if I had to give up that knowledge, like you said, those skills and those problem solving skills that I've had to learn, and the beautiful friendships I have had, and the career I have, if I had to give all that up, I would not. I would remain, blind, and because that's more important to me than seeing 20/20.
I wish I was the same person that I am now when I was 35. I'm not saying that I was a jerk and a manipulator and so on necessarily, but what they say, youth is wasted on the young and so on, you know?
I think that's a song. Somebody sang that song.
Yeah. So, no, it's like, I'm okay.
Yeah. We are okay, aren't we, Jeff?
And we're, and in certain respects, with a lot of other aspects of my life, when you combine it with blindness, I'm lucky.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. Jeff, thank you so much for being with us today. How can people reach you if they, I know you're a licensed therapist and, but almost you'll be there, you'll get there. But how would you like people to reach out to you?
Well, I think that one way to get to know me, as they used to say on Saturday Night Live, is to look for the blog. I mean, you can Google the title of the blog, which is Jalapeños in the Oatmeal, Jalapenos in the Oatmeal. And I believe that would take you to the WordPress site.
Okay.
And I think they're listed chronologically. Yeah. And I can give you my email address. I'm not planning to become a licensed clinical social worker or therapist in Colorado, but my email address, and I'll do it phonetically and so on, is jkflodin@gmail.com. That's J as in Juliet, K as in Kilo, F as in Foxtrot, L as in Lima, O as in Oscar, D as in Delta, I as in India, N as in November @gmail.com. And that's me. And I invite anybody to email me or check out what I've written in the blog. And thanks for inviting me to join you, Penn. You do what's necessary to overcome those kinds of isolating, fearful things that people need to cope with.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jeff. And thank you for all that you do. And everybody out there, thank you for what you do. You keep getting up every morning and doing what's necessary to live the life you want. And even when you take a bite of your oatmeal and there's a jalapeno in there instead of a raisin or a walnut or whatever you decide to put in your oatmeal, you keep going. And that's what this podcast is all about, that there is life after sight. So again, Jeff, thank you. And everybody, keep sending in your stories. And if you or somebody would like to be on the podcast, don't hesitate to reach out to me. It's Penn, PENN, @aincolorado.org. Again, that's Penn, PENN, @aincolorado.org. And check out the rest of the podcast that Audio Information Network of Colorado has. And you can do that by going to www.aincolorado.org. And everybody have a beautiful day. And definitely check out Jeff's blog, Jalapeños in the Oatmeal.